He was 22 years old when they called him a murderer. A black man with no criminal record, no motive, and no reason to be suspected. But in a system where skin color could decide guilt before a single word was spoken, the truth didn't matter. He was arrested, sentenced to death, and locked away for 30 long years for a crime he did not commit. This is the story of Anthony Ray Hinton. It was 1985 in Birmingham, Alabama. The air was heavy with fear. 2 white men had been shot and killed in separate incidents. The police were under pressure. The community demanded justice. And when they couldn't find the real killer, they found someone who was easy to blame. Someone black, someone poor, someone they believed no one would fight for. That someone was Anthony. Anthony was at home the night the crime happened. He had been working at a factory earlier that day. He had witnesses. He had an alibi. But when officers showed up at his mother's house, they didn't ask questions. They pointed guns at him. They told him he was under arrest. His life changed in a single breath. Anthony believed the truth would set him free. He thought this was just a mistake, a misunderstanding. But in Alabama in 1985, being innocent was not always enough. When he walked into that courtroom, he didn't see justice. He saw 12 white faces staring at him. He saw a prosecutor determined to win, not to find the truth. And he saw a system that had already decided who he was. The state claimed they had found a murder weapon, a gun from his mother's house. They said the bullets matched, but their forensics were junk science, twisted to fit their story. His lawyer spent barely an hour on his case. He didn't hire experts to challenge the evidence. He didn't fight. He told Anthony he couldn't win against the state. The trial lasted only a few days. The jury took little time to decide. Guilty. Anthony Ray Hinton was sentenced to death. They sent him to death row, a cold gray place where the walls smelled like metal and fear. His cell was no bigger than a bathroom. The electric chair was only a short walk away. Every time someone was executed, he heard the sound of the boots, the sound of keys turning, the silence afterward. He saw men pray, cry, and disappear forever. And every time, he wondered when they would come for him. For years, Anthony lived in a place where hope dies slowly. He lost friends. He lost his youth. He lost pieces of himself to the darkness of that cell. He began to count time not in years, but in executions. But through it all, he held on to the truth. He had not killed anyone, and he would not let them take his soul. He found strength in books, in laughter, in faith. He created a world inside his mind to keep himself alive. He forgave those who hated him, because he knew hate would destroy him faster than prison walls ever could. Years passed, then decades. 20 years behind bars for a crime he didn't commit. But then, everything began to change when the Equal Justice Initiative, an organization dedicated to fighting wrongful convictions, took his case. Brian Stevenson, a lawyer who had made it his mission to expose injustice in the Deep South, believed Anthony, and more importantly, he had the evidence to prove it. They hired top ballistics experts. They re-examined the bullets. And the truth was exactly what Anthony had said from the beginning. The bullets didn't match. The so-called evidence was a lie. The original testimony was flawed, biased, and manipulated to secure a conviction. But even then, the state refused to admit they were wrong. They fought to keep him on death row. 30 years after his arrest, his case finally reached the Supreme Court of the United States. The highest court in the country saw what the lower courts had ignored. Anthony Ray Hinton had been wrongly convicted. After 30 years in a cell, 30 years amidst birthdays, funerals, and sunrises, the truth could no longer be buried. In April 2015, Anthony walked out of prison a free man. The sun touched his face for the first time in decades. He lifted his arms, not in celebration, but in disbelief. The world had changed. Cars were faster. Streets were different. People had phones in their hands. But deep down, he was still the same man they'd locked away 30 years earlier. He had lost everything, his youth, his freedom, his mother, who died while he was still behind bars. But what they could not take from him was his spirit. They tried to bury him under lies, but the truth rose higher. Anthony's story is not just about one man. It's about a system that saw his skin before it saw the facts. It's about a courtroom that valued a quick conviction over a fair trial. It's about a justice system that isn't always just. And it's a reminder of how many innocent lives remain in the shadows, waiting to be heard. He once said, "They took away 30 years of my life, but they couldn't take away my joy. I choose to forgive because if I don't, I'll be in prison forever." This is more than a story. It's a warning, a truth that America has often tried to ignore. Anthony Ray Hinton spent 3 decades waiting for the world to believe him. And when the truth finally came, it came too late to give him back the years they stole. Do you believe justice was truly served? Share your thoughts in the comments. And subscribe to hear more untold stories they try to hide.